Pope Leo, the first American-born pope, has made a historic apology this morning in legitimizing the Vatican's role in slavery.
The popes who gave European kings permission to enslave people, he called it a wound in Christian memory.
You must never forget that the Roman Catholic Church was involved in slavery, and they have apologized for it.
The first American pope on Memorial Day did what no pope has ever done before.
What if I told you that the Vatican helped Europe colonize the world, that it justified European colonialism in the name of spreading Christianity?
He didn't apologize for slavery. He did something bigger. He apologized for the church's role in legitimizing it. In the 1400s, popes issued these decrees called papal bulls. They sent them around to all these European kingdoms, basically saying you have our authority to enslave people that aren't Christian. This gave Portugal and Spain the moral cover to begin what we know as chattel slavery. In the 1440s and 1450s, Portugal began kidnapping and purchasing enslaved Africans. But in 1452, Portugal started its first sugarcane plantation on the island of Madeira. It was the first time enslaved Africans were used on an industrial scale to produce a cash crop. This is also where we begin to see Christopher Columbus and Spanish explorers begin to go to North and South America and the Caribbean, enslaving and ending the lives of thousands of indigenous people. The transatlantic slave trade would have never happened if the church did not authorize it.
On this black-ass holiday, that's right, Decoration Day, the day that white Americans took, reclaimed, whitewashed, and made into a mattress sale with cookouts. Most of y'all woke up this morning not realizing that today exists because of Black Americans. Yeah, y'all ain't know Black Americans started this holiday. It was newly freed Black Americans who found a mass grave of Union soldiers, the same soldiers who had just fought for our rights to be free and seen as human. So they took those soldiers, dug them up from this mass grave, gave them each a burial, honored them, gave them a cemetery and a ceremony where Black children sang and Black leaders spoke. And every year after that, Black leaders would speak on how to stop the rise of the Confederacy again, celebrating those fallen Union soldiers who fought for our rights to be free. And Pope Leo chose today, this black-ass holiday, to apologize for the Vatican's role in slavery.
Now, in the 15th century, the Vatican authorized the conquering of Africa and enslaving non-Christians. Previous popes apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but none had publicly acknowledged the explicit role the Vatican had in allowing this to happen.
This is not a moral awakening. Most people hear Pope Leo XIV apologize for the Vatican's role in slavery and think that the Catholic Church finally grew a conscience. That's not what happened. Remember how back in March, 123 nations at the UN, led by the African Union, Black diaspora advocates, and reparations scholars, voted to declare chattel slavery the greatest crime against humanity? And now, 2 months later, Leo drops an apology in his first encyclical? That apology came after decades of Black Catholic scholars, activists, and organizers demanding the Vatican own its institutional role and culpability in the transatlantic slave trade. The Vatican didn't just look the other way. In 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued a document called the Dum Diversas, giving Portugal's king the religious and legal authority to invade Africa, seize land, and enslave anyone who wasn't Christian. 3 years later, he issued a follow-up that expanded that authority. 4 more popes renewed it. Those documents became the legal foundation for European colonialism across Africa and the Americas. The first pope to explicitly condemn slavery did so in 1888 after most countries had already abolished it. And as of today, the Vatican has never formally nullified those original documents. I mean, this is often how things go. Britain didn't abolish the slave trade because Parliament grew a conscience. Haitian revolutionaries and Caribbean rebellions made the system too costly to hold. They formalized what they could no longer maintain. Lincoln freed the enslaved out of moral conviction. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation 2 years into a war the Union was losing after enslaved people were already fleeing to Union lines. Frederick Douglass, had to pressure him repeatedly. It was a military calculation. The moral awakening narrative is harmful because it centers the perpetrator's growth as the story and erases the labor of the people who actually forced the change. Institutions respond to consequences, not conscience. The cost of staying silent went up. Yesterday's price is not today's price. With 123 nations on record, global reparations pressure building, and a new pope with Black ancestry who couldn't possibly dodge it, yeah, it's past time. When it comes to the U.S. apologizing and providing reparations, do you think that they're gonna do right? Don't hold your breath, because I already know there's someone in the comments right now that think even apologizing is out of the question.
Direct contravention of the papal decree, church and its sovereigns, the cross and all Cretinism mission to vanquish, capture, and subdue the Moorish kingdom, dominions, possession, goods, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. The papal bull further justified the enslavement of non-Christian people. Non-Christian people were considered heathens. Papal bulls were issued accordingly by Pope Nicholas V, titled the Bull Romanus Pontifex of January 8, 1455, in favor of Portugal, and Pope Alexander VI, inter cetera, among the Spanish shields. A papal bull is a formal public decree, letter, or charter issued by the Pope of the Catholic Church. Papal bull of May 4, 1493, forbidding anyone subject to the interdict, under the pains of excommunication, to speak of these manuscripts.
Then you must excommunicate half of Christendom, because half the world is against us.
For the Vatican itself, giving European powers authority basically to conquer and enslave non-Christians. The article points to 15th century article decrees that authorized Portuguese rulers to invade lands in Africa and the Americas to reduce people to perpetual slavery. One decree from 1452, literally called Dum Diversas, reportedly gave permission to invade, conquer, fight, and subjugate non-Christians. Another decree later helped form what is known now today as the doctrine of discovery, which was used to justify colonial land seizures. Pope Leo said it took 18 centuries to fully recognize slavery as incompatible with human dignity.
What if I told you that the Vatican helped Europe colonize the world, that it justified European colonialism in the name of spreading Christianity, that there are papal decrees that allowed European empires to take over entire countries? And for what? To allow colonizers to subjugate people, to take away their lands, wage war on their cultures, impose a self-conceived notion of racial superiority over them. And all of this just because the colonizers claimed that they were the ones who discovered new lands. So they had a right to rule over those new lands. Now the Vatican has come forward and apologized for what it did. It has apologized for helping the colonizers. Here's a report.
Have you heard something called the doctrine of discovery? It's Europe's version of finders, keepers. It's what European colonizers used to subjugate the world. The doctrine was cited by Europeans who discovered new lands, and the doctrine traces its roots back to the Vatican and to the Catholic Church. Now the Church has apologized for helping colonizers in their conquests. On Thursday, the Vatican issued an unprecedented statement. It officially apologized for its historical role in justifying colonialism by European powers. The Vatican said, "The Roman Catholic Church repudiates those concepts that fail to recognize the inherent human rights of indigenous peoples, including what has become known as the legal and political doctrine of discovery." It also declared that the doctrine is not part of the Christian's faith, but the Vatican is centuries late. The doctrine of discovery is a concept laid out in the so-called papal bulls. What are these? These are usually official statements from the head of the Catholic Church. That would be the Pope. So no less than the popes were involved in justifying European colonialism. Their decrees were used extensively in the conquest of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Africa, and the United States. The colonizers claimed that they had the approval of the Church to have sovereignty, property, and commercial rights in lands they discovered. Here's an example. Papal decrees in the 15th century permitted Portugal to subjugate Muslims and the non-Christians in Africa. That's not even the ugliest part of these decrees. The Vatican was quite explicit when it came to who Europe could colonize. It could only be non-Christians. So colonialism was essentially used as a tool by the Vatican to spread Christianity across the world. And the colonized countries paid a huge price. Take Canada, for instance. Between the 19th and the 20th centuries, more than 150,000 indigenous children were taken hostage in Canada. They were snatched away from their families and lodged against their will in the re-education institutions. Here, they were subjected to unspeakable atrocities. They were physically assaulted and sexually abused. Many of them didn't survive. They were buried in mass graves that are still being discovered in Canada. Last year, Pope Francis visited Canada. He apologized to the indigenous people for what the Vatican put them through. In 2015, too, the Pope...
I can remember times as, talking to my grandfather and that how there were men that, even in his time, that called themselves Christians but still put on hoods and white robes and carried crosses and still hung people. Yeah, they did. The church has been complicit in a lot of things, and they still are, even on today. Yeah.
That there are papal decrees that allowed European empires to take over entire countries. And for what? To allow colonizers to subjugate people, to take away their lands, wage war on their cultures, impose a self-conceived notion of racial superiority over them. And all of this just because the colonizers claimed that they were the ones who discovered new lands.
That is so important to think about today, and it's part of the breaking news, is how Magnificat Humanitas talks about new slavery and how this technological age via artificial intelligence is part of a moment of new slavery or a new chapter of new slavery. And you cannot talk about new slavery without what? Talking about the history of chattel slavery. And so as such, in this encyclical, Pope Leo apologizes for the church's role in being very complacent during chattel slavery. And I want to just read this excerpt. Pope Leo says on page 60 of this document, I wanted to give you all the citational evidence, and it's going to be a little bit long, but bear with me for a second. So he says, open quote, in the development of her doctrine, the church has gradually come to a deeper awareness of the gravity of these issues being slavery or new slavery. It is true that past events cannot be judged anachronistically, as though the moral criteria that matured over time had always been available. Yet neither can we deny or diminish the delay with which both society and the church came to denounce the scourge of slavery. In other words, church and the society took too damn long to denounce slavery. In antiquity and the Middle Ages, many individuals and even ecclesiastical institutions had slaves. Already in the early modern period, the Apostolic See of Rome, responding to requests from sovereigns, intervened several times in order to regulate and legitimize forms of subjugation and, in certain cases, the enslavement of infidels. So the church had its hands in chattel slavery, right? It was only in the 19th century that a formal, absolute, and universal condemnation of slavery was clearly articulated, notably under who? Pope Leo XIII. This development offers a clear example of the church's growth in understanding the perennial truths of revelation that she safeguards. Although there was not always consistency in practice, given that slavery was long tolerated before being unequivocally condemned, there has been a continuous affirmation throughout history of the dignity of every human being created in the image of God, even if it took 18 centuries for its full incompatibility with slavery to be explicitly recognized. So there, Pope Leo is like, human beings, Black and African people, are made in the image of God. Slavery is not compatible with according dignity and worth to those made in the image of God. And we fucked up, y'all. We fucked up. He continues, this constitutes a wound in Christian memory. It does, one from which we cannot consider ourselves detached. He is saying the church must be accountable, and accept responsibility for dragging its damn feet for so long. It is impossible not to feel deep sorrow when contemplating the immense suffering and humiliation endured by so many, in stark contrast to the immeasurable dignity as persons infinitely loved by the Lord. For this, in the name of the church, I sincerely ask for pardon. For this, in the name of the church, I sincerely ask for pardon. Notice, this ain't got nothing to do with God. God did not condone slavery. Man, created in the image of God, distorting that very image, becoming egotistical, because friends, we always have to think about, is it ego or is it God? Often it's ego. Just because it's loud, it ain't God, right? And so this is why Pope Leo is saying, for this in the name of the church, this man-made institution carrying out religion as it sees fit, distorted interpretations that allowed slavery to happen for as long as it did. For this in the name of that church, I sincerely ask for pardon. And here's the last paragraph that I will read. This is why the memory of past complicity and blindness in the face of the injustice of slavery becomes a call to vigilance. What we have learned must be translated into discernment and responsibility in the present. If we want to avoid the need to ask for pardon again in the future for having failed to respect the treasure of human dignity that is required by our faith, it falls to us today to denounce clearly and firmly trafficking in its many forms, and together with all who are committed to this cause, to support concrete efforts of prevention, protection, liberation, and rehabilitation. Close quote. So this is the big news of the day, of the weekend, possibly of the summer, coming out of Vatican City, that the church via Pope Leo has denounced its role in being complacent about the matters of slavery, which impinged on the human rights of Black and brown people. Because he even says, even today, colonialism assumes new forms. I know this document is going to be lit. Why? Because Pope Leo is a Chicago-style pope. A spicy pope, one of the spiciest that we've had in some time. So I expect this to be a lot of hot fire. And what I'm probably going to be doing is reading a chapter a day. This is 5 chapters. Yeah, 5 chapters. And then giving a little debrief. So for the Catholics or those who are nosy and interested in what the Catholics are doing, this is what I'm going to be doing over the next week, in addition to whatever else tickles my fancy.
You get many of the popes who are in support of slavery thereafter, and it is not until 1888 when you have the first Pope Leo the 13th, who says that slavery is condemned, that God loves all his children, including the Africans and the Americans. But in 1880, slavery around the modern world at that time frame, the Western world, and had already been abolished. So they were Johnny-come-lately to the party. They changed when the culture changed. You see, before that, the popes all had made these papal bulls based on what the culture was already doing, or they were establishing the culture themselves. Popes like Pope Gregory himself had slaves. So it was common for them to do whatever the culture was doing. But now Pope Leo the 14th has come out and said that they apologize. And he's asking for those who are the descendants of those slaves, those who are the descendants of the colonization in Africa, to give them a pardon, to forgive them. You see, a pardon, it's an interesting word. You see, when you pardon someone, you say that, yes, you committed a crime, but I'm not going to punish you for the crime, nor do I seek any type of repayment from that crime. You're just pardoned. It's wiped away. It's a clean slate. Because, as he said, this is a stain in the memory of Christianity. You would have to be a fool to accept this with any type of glee, because there are no teeth behind it. None whatsoever. It reminds me of World War II. If you were to go do the research of the aftermath of World War II, then one of the things that you're going to find is the Conference of Jewish Material Claims Agency claims against Germany. In that, up to 2005, tens of billions of euros have been paid back to the victims of the Holocaust. Not just to those who had survived the Holocaust, but to the descendants as well. Lands that were stolen, payments have been received back. Lands in other countries, payments have been received. There are still to this day, this organization just acquired another $105 million that will be paid out through 2027, meaning that it is still being paid today. Reparations to the descendants of those who are survivors of the Holocaust. Reparations to those whose families were destroyed and whose society was devastated by the Holocaust. You see, the Pope coming out and saying that, please pardon us, please forgive us, we're all God's children, but without any type of reparations being paid to the countries or the people that it has most affected, it lacks teeth. It's interesting how the European Jews were able to get money to rebuy houses, land, to re-educate themselves in colleges and universities, to establish for themselves a culture that is supported by funds that enable them to have levels of power within government. And I know that most of the world just said that slavery, the transatlantic slave trade and colonization was the worst thing that has ever happened in human history and denounced it, save for countries like America who did not want to participate in that. Because the admission of guilt now means that you're open to having to pay, to having to uplift those communities that you have devastated for centuries. You see, the papacy sits in a house of gold. I've been to the Vatican. It's a lot of gold, jewels, all throughout the Vatican. You go to many of these Catholic churches as they pray for the poor while surrounded by all the gold, ivory, jewels, while the papacy owns almost more land than any other organization in the world, save for governments. Yet they want you to pardon them, forgive them without payment. Only to the African and to the African American and any others in the diaspora do they ask us to always forgive them, let them have a pardon without them having to pay for the devastation that they have caused throughout our communities and for generations. That the situation that has allowed for racism to continue to flourish to the point where a black person seems to always been thought of as the criminal, as the person who's lazy, as the person who is destroying a country. They ask us for a pardon, and I say hell no. And as far as Pope Leo, it might have been in, good thought process, but you didn't think it through. How about some of all that gold that you got up there in your churches? How about you use some of that to create an educational fund for the people who were affected by this? How about you use some of that gold to repurchase land and buy and help start up businesses in these colonized African countries, in the Americas, in Europe? How about you utilize some money, some finances to put behind the people and the generations that you've devastated so that they can truly have equal footing in this world instead of your sorry ass apology? So Pope Leo, as well intended as it may be, it is not received. You are not pardoned. The Christian church is not pardoned. The papacy is not pardoned. Until you actively put together some reparations, you are still guilty of initiating what the world has condemned as the worst time frame in history. See, it's kind of like if I came to you and I burned down your house, and then I come back to you and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I still have a burnt down house." So until you come and you give me the resources to rebuild my house, which is what real repentance is according to your religion, repentance is not just saying I'm sorry, but real repentance is rebuild my house, furnish it the way it was, make everything new again. When you do that, then you can be forgiven, but you will never be pardoned. What do you guys think?
So guys, we have continuously talked about this thing, when people do things in darkness, when they do things that are malicious, when they do things that are, things you're not proud to tell people that you actually took part in doing. Now, we have always said these people will one day find it necessary to come out and talk about it themselves. Every time black people have asked these questions, who actually did this? Who endorsed slavery? Why did they endorse slavery? Now, many people that were partakers of that have made sure to not be responding to them, talking about it. They have not engaged with them. They have behaved as though they are not part of it. Now, today's topic is very interesting. The Pope Leo, has recently put out a message out there apologizing to black people, apologizing to you guys. Now, what is he apologizing for? He's apologizing for the Vatican taking part in actively endorsing slavery, everything that has happened to black people for all those years, those many years that we keep talking about here, 400, 500 years of suffering, of torture, of oppression, those things that happened to black people, our forefathers, our ancestors. The Vatican was part of it. The Vatican, of all the things that you can actually think of, everyone that you can imagine taking part in making black people suffer, that kind of hate. To imagine that it came from the Vatican, like they were partakers of that. How does the Vatican actively take a part and play a role in making sure that slavery happens and that black people are put through so much suffering to that point? The things that we discuss here, all those things that you have learned in the history of black people, those people went through all that, but the Vatican was part, it played a part in making that happen. This is hard to even imagine. This is so hard to think of because of all the things that they teach, and this is what they afforded to do to black people. You'd ask yourself, why? Why black people? Why? Why did they choose black people for that? And it's so annoying to think that the Vatican was actually part of this. Now, Pope Leo has come out to, accept it in the open, to apologize on behalf of those people that were in place at that time, that did those things. The rest of them that were there behaved as though nothing happened, They have never really come out like that strongly to talk about these things. But Pope Leo has recently made remarks on that and actually apologized to black people for everything that they went through. When you're talking about slavery, you're not merely talking about the thing that is of the past. Slavery has had a lot of consequences on black people even right now as we speak. The things that slavery caused are actually being felt even right now. The pain that was is still there. Black people have been discriminated upon, They have always been the second option, yeah? They have never come first. They have never come first for all those years. And that has remarkably altered their lives, altered their behaviors, how they carry themselves, how they behave around, you know. Black people have never felt enough. They have never felt as if they belong, simply because of people like the Vatican. They decided that it was worth it to do that to black people. They did not care what that will impact the black people with. They did not care that it was going to take a very long time, a pretty long time, for those scars to disappear. And as we speak, the scars are still there. So when do you think the scars are going to disappear? It's going to take a very long time. And for to make the matters worse, the world at large is not ready for this conversation. They're not doing anything to make it right with black people. They keep talking, but talking alone is not enough. For example, I keep saying here, for America and the white people, it is not enough to apologize by word of mouth. Whatever these people have encountered in the past, the suffering, the torture, the discrimination, everything that they have gone through has affected their lives in ways that you can only imagine. So an apology, a word of mouth alone is not enough. When black people are talking about reparations, give it to them. It is rightfully theirs. They do not have to keep begging for it to happen. The minute you do not agree to giving them what they're asking for, it automatically means that you do not have remorse for whatever happened. You're merely saying it for the sake of saying, but you do not mean it. If you meant it, you'd give black people their reparations. Let them do with it whatever they want to, because they have earned it. They have suffered for that. They have built America. They have made America what it is right now. Without black people, America would not be America. That is the point that they keep ignoring. They keep making sure that they do not remember on a daily. Black people took an active role, almost single-handedly, making America be what it is right now. And the same people to think that they are the ones that are actually going through a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, it is absurd. It's not something that is supposed to be happening. It's not even natural. Why would they be the ones on the receiving end of bad things? Now the Vatican has come out, and there are many people that are going to come out. Everything that they did in the dark will come out in the light, in broad daylight. We will see them. We keep saying it here. You will see it, guys. They will come out and they will talk about it, and they will admit to the things that they did, all those atrocities, all the suffering that black people went through, all the bad things that black people experience today. They will own it, because it will haunt them until they talk about it. It will haunt them until they make it right with black people. God will not allow them peace. God will not allow them any kind of peace at all until they make it right with black people. Sometimes when black people talk about them being the God's chosen, it almost gets them as a joke. They don't believe it. But when things like this now start happening, it is when they will believe, because they will not get any joy, they will not get any satisfaction, they will not get any little peace, no ounce of peace, until they make it right with black people, until black people say they are okay. And the easiest way to start is the reparations. Do justice to black people. That is deservedly for them. And they deserve even more, because for everything, for every single thing they have done to America, they deserve the world. They deserve every single thing that they're asking for. Don't make it so hard for them. Now, we're here. We will be watching. We will be waiting for them to come out. We will be waiting for them to talk about these things, to own their shit, to own their atrocities, the things that their people did to black people. They will own it. Only until then will they get any peace. Only until then will they be comfortable living in their own skin. And they look at these things and think it's a joke, it's black people being black people. It is until they make it right with black people that their lives will become normal. It's until they do the right thing by blacks that their lives will go on smooth. Before that, they will have all this drama going on. Look at America, look at the Vatican now. Look at the things that are happening in the world currently. All because of the things that they put their hand in. All the things that they allow to happen to black people. All the things that they play blind to. The things that are affecting black people right now. The discrimination. The belittling. All those things. Black people, for every single tear that you have shed, for every single tear that you have shed, it will be paid for. That I am sure about. That I am sure about. So guys, let's keep sharing in the comment section what you think about this. Yeah, let me know what you think about this Pope's issue. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, kindly consider doing that right now. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on my channel, and I love it here with you. I hope to see you on my next video, guys. Bye for now.